What's going on, everyone? I've got a long one and a fun one for you all today. We're going to be diving into everything from Whisperer and what it actually does to heroes, brands, artifacts, mounts, pets, skills you should be using, and all the in-between. At least that is the goal today. This took me a while, compiling the images and, of course, just prepping for the video, doing my research. I am not the genius behind what I am going to be explaining to you all today. There are a lot of people in the community that have done the math behind all these things, and I am trusting their research. I am just compiling that information for you today in a consumable format. So if you want to check out more info about the Whisperer, the best resource that I can lead you to is the Capybara Go official Discord. That is the place to go for any more additional information that you're looking for, or if you maybe didn't quite understand something for the video. There's going to be timestamps in the description down below for you guys to pop around to specific parts. Perhaps you want to come back to the video for specific guidance, just for you and for the ease of it. It took me a while for this video. If you want to show some love to the channel before we dive in, there's a subscribe button down below, or just continue watching the videos, guys. Appreciate all of your effort and just hanging out with me. I do post every day, so just check out all the other videos if you want. But let's talk about the Whisperer starting us out. What are we doing with the Whisperer? Well, the Whisperer really revolves around two things, and that is critting on our basic attacks and daggers, because we are throwing daggers upon our critical hits. If you look at the basic stat here for the Whisperer, we are getting that weapon crit rate. Now, this mainly affects our basic attack crit rate. This is really important. Why? Because our first effect, this great effect, the green one right here, we're going to be throwing daggers upon a weapon crit hit. Our rage skill also throws daggers. We are going to get extra restore rage on basic attacks. The global attack plus 25%. This is pretty common with all S-rank weapons. We're getting extra dagger damage as our legendary effect. And as our mythic effect, we are going to give extra weapon crit rate and crit damage for each dagger hit. So how do we abuse this as we're going along? Obviously, daggers are the first kind of step. When you're going through, there are a lot of skills like gain rage on a dagger hit, or chance to gain rage, chance to poison, chance to hit a bolt. All of those things obviously function with the Whisperer excellently. But actually, the biggest thing that really boosts up the Whisperer is combo rate. So combo rate and combo attacks are basically sequential hits of basic attacks. Not only will those generate extra rage, which allows us to throw extra daggers with our Whisperer skill, but more importantly, every single combo hit that we can hit has a chance to crit. And if we're critting, guess what we're doing? We're throwing more daggers. So the idea behind the Whisperer and what the entire build is going to be trying to do is all of our Whisperer strategy is to get extra combo, extra attack, extra combo rate, extra crit chance, and all the above to synergize with our daggers so we can throw more daggers. With that, all the daggers are typically doing skill damage. So skill damage is going to be our main focus in terms of increasing a lot of our value here. So TLDR about the overall Whisperer here, we want crit to crit on basics. We want combo to be able to basic more often to throw more daggers. We want everything to work with daggers and skill damage, because daggers are a skill. It's going to be triggering a lot of other things like the bolts and anything else that you're working with, like flame waves potentially, or flame strike. And of course, well, the daggers themselves are going to be creating ideally as well with some bonuses we are using in this build. Let's dive into the first topic, which is going to be the actual gear that we want to use. All right, to start us off in the gear category, well, guess what weapon we're using? We're using the Whisperer. Guys, if you didn't know that we were using the Whisperer at this point, this guide may not help you. I'm going to be honest. I'm sorry. It's titled Whisperer. I mentioned Whisperer like for the first 5 minutes. So yes, we're using the Whisperer, okay? Jokes aside, we got some other pieces of gear to talk about. Before we do, remember, there are a lot of free-to-play players or low spenders such as myself. The buy-to-play players is what I like to call them. The people who get the lifetime card or the ad card and don't do monthly expenses. That means that you probably won't be able to get this ideal gear until you're like 125 years old. It is what it is. But that said, these are things that you should strive for. And actually, a lot of the combinations here that I'm going to mention include non-S rank pieces of gear that are still absolutely viable endgame pieces because of the way the build is structured. So just keep that in mind. Of course, in general, we're talking about the ideal scenario, but I will add some context to it as we go along. So starting us off with the armor, we've got Dragon's Breath armor and the Revival Cloak. You might see an arrow there. This is one of the few times where I am providing context immediately. The Dragon's Breath armor is going to be the better piece of armor for the vast majority of your time in Capybara Go until you get to the late game. When you get to the very late game, we're talking like past chapter 180, you are going to start using the Revival Cloak. Why? Because you literally get one shot. And if you're getting one shot, the sustain that the Dragon's Breath armor is going to give you isn't actually going to help you at all. So you want to go for the Dragon's Breath armor. And it's totally fine to bring this thing up to a mythic level and continue to use it. You are perfectly okay doing so. That is my current goal right now, especially since it's on the same banner as the Bloody Grail and the Judgment Ring, which are our two end game ring and accessory pieces. Onto the accessories here, you might see that we've got Bloody Grail and the Icy Bubble, or another Bloody Grail. Okay, so in the ideal world, if you do not need the CC from the Icy Bubble, specifically for chapter, the extra damage from Bloody Grail, the extra viability that it's going to provide is going to be absolutely massive. Here's the problem with that. They are the exact same S rank accessories for your build, which is going to be really tough to level up to Mythic for both Bloody Grails. It takes like 6 months or so for a regular free-to-play player to get their first Mythic piece on average. You can definitely go faster than that or slower, but that needs to be multiplied by 2. That's double Bloody Grail. It's not going to be very likely. I generally recommend Icy Bubble, and in fact, Icy Bubble is going to be better than double Bloody Grail for the majority of your content here because of the extra CC and pushing power that it offers. But of course, double Bloody Grail is in some sense the ideal option when you're super late in the game, and it's something that you can still run in the earlier pieces. Just remember that Icy Bubble is actually going to be something that you can really run and be highly successful with. As for rings, Judgment Ring, absolutely zero question, must have. This thing is a major contender for a massive damage boost, especially when you get it to Mythic level. This is one of the biggest damage increases that you can provide for your build when you get into Mythic level. The skill crit rate and crit damage bonuses, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we are doing a lot of skill damage. That is going to boost that damage up significantly. Alongside the Judgment Ring, you can either go with the Guardian's Ring or the Sky Flame Ring. Now, this one's a little bit interesting. The Guardian's Ring is generally going to be the one you want to use if you have any trouble surviving whatsoever. If you're getting low in these battles and you're not actually able to pump out enough damage, the Guardian's Ring is going to really be a clutch saver. And just like the Icy Bubble and the Dragon's Breath armor, it's going to be way easier to progress because they're in kind of, well, in the Guardian Ring and Icy Bubble's case, it's going to be just a non-S rank piece of gear. In the Dragon's Breath armor's case, it's going to be on the banner you want to subbed, but it's just going to be the easier to acquire piece of gear. The Sky Flame Ring is a great late game option. It's on an entirely separate banner, but it's going to provide some massive value for you, especially if you equip the Rogue. Now, the Rogue is something that does require you to replace a brand slot, and we'll talk about that more later on. But the Sky Flame Ring is going to give you a pretty big damage increase for you when you get to that point. It's going to be pretty nice to utilize, but it's just that it is a huge investment, and that is truly the issue. But there are a lot of synergies with it, and it will provide you a lot of value. So in the very late game, there's a good chance that swapping over the Sky Flame Ring is going to provide you just that little bit of extra value. But that's going to be the gear here. Let's move on to the next stage, which is going to lead us to the Adventurers. All right, so for the Adventurers, guys, in general, this one's a pretty straightforward one. Dragon Girl. if you are a free-to-play player, it's going to be Dragon Girl until you're probably just never playing this game again or it's shut down. Like, we're talking massive amounts of time. Leo is the brand new adventure, and Gagarin's actually a pretty brand new adventure as well. These both have some viability and do out damage the Dragon Girl, but at like extreme investment levels. Really, Leo starts to shine when you are at 10 stars. 10 stars! That's when you want to use Leo. When are you going to get 10 stars? Basically never as a free-to-play player or as a low spender. But if you are a mega whale, can you even reach 10? I don't even know the math on Leo here in between the two Ninja Turtle events as to whether or not that's even feasible to do. But when you reach those late portions, Leo does start to outpace Dragon Girl, specifically at star level 10, quite significantly. So Leo is worth mentioning just for that. Gagarin is a little bit more of an interesting one. This one is going to be seemingly similar to Dragon Girl, that it will be more accessible in some of the more events that are more commonplace. So maybe in the future, when people start after a while, that Gagarin's been in the game for a while, do they want to start off with Gagarin or Dragon Girl? I would still suggest Dragon Girl, at least in the current state. A lot of people have done the math on Gagarin, and unless you are very high star level and you're getting significant dagger procs every single round, you are really not outpacing the Dragon Girl whatsoever. And that's the tricky part about it. I think the math that I saw was like you need 45 dagger procs in some of these rounds to outpace the Dragon Girl, which is incredibly difficult to do, and have a high star level on Gagarin, which is something that, again, at least in the current moment, is not free-to-play viable. But I see a lot of people asking, should I be going for Gagarin? It's got all these dagger synergies, which is exactly what the Whisperer is trying to do, right? Or what about Leo, the new adventure that people are talking about? Neither one of these is worth even thinking about if you're a free-to-play. But if you are a whale, you could kind of look into these a little bit more. The Leo and the Gagarin can outpace the Dragon Girl in certain circumstances, but we're talking like mega whale Kraken status, really, for the most part, at the late game. You need to be very high star level on Leo or Gagarin to utilize their power. The next portion of this one is inheritance. Now, there are really two that people really consider, and the first one that I immediately considered was the Ranger. And it makes a lot of sense, right? The Ranger is working with daggers and it's working with crit, which makes a lot of sense. That's what I said that the Whisperer wants to utilize, right? And for sure, in the early game, the Ranger inheritance is going to give you a nice little bonus, especially getting down to the Forest Ranger effect, which gives you the extra crit rates. And that can definitely help you out a lot when you're still working on improving your crit rate. But like I said at the beginning of the video, it's really about what the ideal portion of your build or what the ideal state of your build will be. And you should not invest any elite packs into the Ranger. The Ghost inheritance is where we want to be. The part of it is you unlock a very powerful hero later on in the inheritance that you definitely are going to want to consider, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But also with the inheritance, the Ghost inheritance, that is, you're going to be boosting up your skill damage and your elemental damage and a lot of other portions that the Whisperer takes advantage of more. The boosted damage that the Ranger is going to be providing you, like extra dagger damage or the extra like random value from dagger hits, isn't actually going to boost up your damage as much as the random skill damage and skill crit rate and all the other stuff that the Ghost is offering. Mainly because the damage profile on a lot of weapons is actually coming from your adventurer a lot of the time, but also from just in general skills, not from a specific one like just daggers. Just daggers is actually a relatively low percentage of your damage profile, which is what makes Ranger a little bit weaker. This is despite the fact of Ghost offering a lot of controlling benefits that are really good for pushing your account into the late game, which just give you a ton of value. And there are some effects that are directly related to PvP that do a lot of bonuses for you, because PV or players actually build the stats that the Ghost is reducing, whereas the Ranger doesn't really have stats that players are reducing for PvP either. So even in a PvP scenario, the Ghost outpaces the Ranger, and you should just be maybe investing into the Ranger, no elite packs, but just to build up in the early game and maybe reach to like tier 2 on the side nodes, so you can get a little bit of a start going with the crit rate and to unlock some levels. But you can even use the skeleton inheritance for it. I have a full video on this, but in general, the Ghost inheritance is where you want to be. And it's a little bit confusing because, again, people immediately see, and this is why I wanted to put this section in the video, Ranger, daggers, crit rate. Great, that's what Whisper wants to do. Ghost is going to be better by a large margin for you in the late game. Obviously, the Ranger, when you don't have your build fully set up, is going to be pretty good still, but you don't really want to be wasting your elite packs when you're going to need them later on in the game. That brings us to our heroes, which one of the heroes is unlocked through the inheritance. And I should probably do a full video on this because it's a little bit confusing. A lot of people don't even realize that that is a thing. But the hero, first off, that you want to use is Knight of the End. Now, Knight of the End, his main value is that if you're not getting one shot, you get a massive shield, and that's going to help you survive significantly in the late game, basically up till chapter 180, and even sometimes a little bit past that. It's going to do some really, really good work. But also the shield that you're getting at Mythic is going to be converted into additional attack power as well. So it's actually going to be a little bit of a damage boost. And if you use a different brand here that we'll talk about a little bit later after this one, or after this slide, we get to dive into some of the synergies that work with Knight of the End. This one, to me, is just a absolute must-have. It's going to do some major work for you. It's also going to be really good to give you basically an extra HP bar in PvP. As for our second hero, because you can have two heroes active, you have Spring Orchid and the Ghost Princess. Now, Ghost Princess is when you unlock tier 6 of the Ghost Legacy or Ghost Inheritance. This is going to be very late in the game. Ghost Inheritance takes a long time to upgrade. In the meantime, I would definitely recommend investing into the Spring Orchid. And in fact, if you don't need as much CC, you can definitely omit the Ghost Princess in certain circumstances, and Spring Orchid is going to be better. Spring Orchid is going to be responsible for a significant damage increase for your build, because of its synergy with the Dragon Girl Adventurer also, actually, but also all of the various lightning triggers and flame triggers that you can utilize that synergize with, guess what, other brands, or maybe the lightning daggers that you may get, is going to just work exceptionally well for you. So this is going to be a huge damage increase if you're able to get the proper skills for it, and as I said, boost up your adventure. But Ghost Princess is just a good catch-all, and that's going to be really nice. It's going to be more consistent than Spring Orchid, but not as explosive, and it's going to take you a lot longer to get to because it's tier 6 Ghost Inheritance. It is what it is. And with our heroes, we've got to pair those with some brands. We have 4 slots for brands, and a lot of this is where we get really the build to shape up. Honestly, the brands are some of the most important pieces of your entire build, and I think a lot of people kind of really underrate them. Starting off with the top section, these 3 are must-haves. The Wild Vulture is absolutely critical. It is not something that you can omit. And the reason being is at Legendary and at Epic, it provides 2 very important bonuses. At Epic, it's going to give you extra combat rate, and that's critical because it's difficult to actually reach 100% combo rate on the Whisperer. And as I mentioned earlier, extra combo attacks is going to get extra crits, which throws extra daggers, which generates extra rage, which throws extra daggers, which works with all of our abilities, right? Great. Everything we want there. Then at Legendary, it's going to give us an extra combo count. This is really important because extra combo count is extremely rare, and it's going to allow us to do more combos, which guess what? Throw extra daggers, get extra rage, but throw extra daggers, which works with all of our abilities. Oh, who knew? We're repeating ourselves here because it's that important. Absolutely necessary. The mythic bonus is actually not as strong. It's going to give you extra combo damage percentage, which combo damage isn't actually where our damage comes from. It comes from all the skill hits and everything like that. But, you know, mythic's just going to give extra stats. It's really the legendary effect that you're looking for on the Wild Vulture. The Joker is a relatively newer one. This one's going to, well, kind of be a little bit self-explanatory. It's going to be pretty awesome. Anytime you hit a weapon crit hit, you're going to throw a card, which is going to randomly trigger Flame Wave, Lightning, Rage Recovery. And guess what? Flame Wave and Lightning are going to work with Spring Orchid, which is going to trigger your value there because, well, when you actually get and by the way, the Joker cards essentially count as daggers as far as I'm aware, but at the legendary effect you're going to get extra Joker cards after weapon critical hit, and then at the mythic level it's going to give you every 3 daggers thrown is going to increase the global skill damage by up to 40%. So it's going to boost your damage on daggers. It's going to give you extra elemental hits, which is going to be boosted by the Ghost Inheritance, and it's going to boost your Spring Orchid damage. It's overall just going to work absolutely amazing together. Then we have someone that's a little bit surprising as well and pretty underrated. In fact, I underrated this one as well, and that is the Nimble Murloc. This one is super underrated, and this one you do want the mythic upgrade on it. And just to give you kind of an idea of how important Wild Vulture is, the only reason we are running the Nimble Murloc is for that mythic effect and the epic effect, which is going to give us the skill combo plus to start off with. That's an extra 15% combo rate. That's it. That's literally why we're using Nimble Murloc. It is so important to make sure we're guaranteeing combos every single round because of all the extra hits that we're getting off, that the Nimble Murloc is a necessary addition to the build. So Nimble Murloc, absolutely a fantastic addition and going to give us so much value for our build because we want to max out that combo rate up to 100% if we possibly can. That is our goal. Then we have the 4th brand slot, and this is where you kind of have a choice. Now, between the heroes and the brands, if you look, Spring Orchid uses Ranger books, Knight of the End uses Paladin, the Wild Vulture uses Skeleton, and then the Nimble Murloc also uses Skeleton. The Joker uses Ranger. So we have 2 Ranger, 2 Skeleton, 1 Paladin. Then you have the option of going the Rogue or the Stone Guardian. So kind of depending on what hero you're going to be running later on, it can help you determine this. The Rogue is going to use Ghost Books. Now, Ghost Books are pretty important because you're using all the Ghost Books in your inheritance for the Ghost, which means it's going to be a little bit trickier to get the Rogue to higher levels. And the Rogue is really excellent at Mythic. Mythic is where you see the Rogue truly shine, but that's a big investment to take away from your Ghost inheritance. What is the Rogue going to offer you? Well, it's going to give you the ability for all daggers to trigger Fire Wave or Flame Wave or whatever other translation mishap that Capybara has, but Fire Strike, whatever that is, whatever translation you're looking at, that is what it's giving you. And that is absolutely fantastic. Remember all the things that we just talked about that it works with, but also remember, if you call back to the gear portion when I talked about the Sky Flame Ring, this is where the Sky Flame Ring becomes a truly excellent gear piece if you're running the Mythic Rogue. So that is one option. It's going to use the Ghost Books, which can be a little bit tricky, especially if you're going to run the Princess, the Ghost Princess, because those all require elite packs oftentimes, and you're going to try to get to the Ghost Princess using your Ghost Books. So that's a little bit tricky. The Stone Guardian is another fantastic option. And if you are struggling in terms of just overall bonuses or just overall build efficiency, the Stone Guardian can be an excellent addition. It's going to give you the ability to start with basic attack shield. So all your basic attacks can generate shield, which is going to work with the Knight of the End, keep you alive and help you push a little bit further. It's also going to increase your shield value, but actually it's mythic bonus. And this is where people really underrate the Stone Guardian. It's going to give you a global damage increase of 10% while shielded. This is just a global damage increase after all the other damage increases happen. So this is actually a significant damage increase, more than a lot of people realize. And Stone Guardian not only is going to increase the survivability, but it's also going to increase your damage significantly. So either one's a pretty good option. I mentioned both of them here because the Rogue is generally something that's going to be a significant investment to really see the payoff. You're going to want the Sky Flame Ring. You're going to want the Mythic level on Rogue, which is going to cut into your Ghost books. And the Stone Guardian is just generally good. It's just generally good. It's just going to be a value piece that you could run, period. But those are the two that I would recommend here as options. You can also consider a couple of others. For example, the Harpy can give you Turn Lightning, a starting effect, which can be interesting. The new one, the Archdemon, can give you extra skill crit rate, which is not a bad option either. But generally, a couple of those have less effectiveness than these two. And then all of those have less effectiveness than these three. These are your three core elements, core brands. The bets here are actually very straightforward for the most part. Yes, there's kind of a couple of specific things you can do in like PvP and certain pieces of content, but in general, and most people do not swap out their pets, you're going to want to be going for Elsa, you're going to want to be going for the Slime King, and you're going to want to be going for Freya. These three, especially Elsa in general, with the exception of PvP, is just going to be like every build wants it. It's going to give you a big damage increase on targets and a reduction in their attack, which is just going to be super powerful. It's also going to have the potential to freeze enemies. So all excellent things that you're going to want in your general pushing content. Just kind of a catch-all pet. The Slime King, this one's really important because it's going to increase your combo and counter rate by up to, and when you get to the max level here, level 80, 10% for a stack of 3. So up to 30%. That's crazy. That is crazy. Incredibly big bonus to your overall build efficiency. And then Freya is pretty nice as well because it's going to give you extra skill crit rate and skill crit damage. Or rather, not skill crit damage, just skill damage, period. And guess what I said earlier? All of our damage, or a good chunk of it, about 50%, is coming from all of our various skills. So this is going to be massively important for our build. These three pets to me are kind of just like what you're going to run. There isn't really a ton of changing unless you're going to dive into specific content or you're trying to really min-max some specific pushes. But to be honest, that's something when you get to very, very late in the game, you can start really worrying about that. Or if you're trying to push like guild content or whatever it is, that's when you can start considering that type of stuff. Next up, we've got artifacts. And this one's a little bit interesting as well because one of the first ones that I think of is the Zanjian flying knife. Oh my gosh, I probably butchered that, so I apologize in advance. But the flying knife immediately talks about daggers and throwing daggers. You're like, okay, that's Whisperer. Boom. That's what I want to do. That, along with Spear of Thor and the Jingtian axe. Again, if I'm butchering these so horribly, I apologize. I am sorry to your language. I just apologize. Anyways, those three are pretty good. There are going to be minor differences in terms of the effectiveness of it. The one that really kind of does shine a little bit higher than those other three here, and it's in the big block that we see in front of our screen, is the Pangu axe. Oh my gosh, I am sorry. The axe, the big old axe here. And the reason being is the consistency of it and just the ability to constantly trigger for massive damage, because it's going to basically, anytime you trigger 10 skill triggers cumulatively, you're going to deal 300% skill damage of our attack, which guess what? Because it's skill damage, you're going to give a big bonus to your overall effectiveness because all the things are comboing off of skill damage. That's really nice. And overall, that's just going to give you so much damage every single round, but it also increases by 40% if they have shields, and it can trigger up to 4 times in a turn. That's also a really important thing because you oftentimes will trigger that all the time, all 4 triggers. So that's a really big bonus. Now, in terms of deploying your artifacts, there's actually 2 parts to this. So getting the artifacts, you want to use the Pangu Axe skill. But deploying your artifacts, you actually want to deploy your Spear of Thor first. And the reason for that is it's going to give you a 50% damage reduction. That's massive. The other ones are pretty good. The flying knife is usually what I put in second because it's going to deal 5 times dagger damage, which each one has a chance to release additional daggers, so that can trigger all the skill effects and everything like that. But the Spear of Thor is really what you're going to be looking for to increase your damage reduction for pushing, generally speaking. In terms of awakening them, I mean, it doesn't really do a whole lot in terms of actually pushing that higher. But you do want to awaken the Pengu Axe if possible, or not the Pengu Axe, the Spear of Thor if possible, because that's going to improve your deploying skill. But really you want to focus on the star rate of the Pengu Axe and then deploy your Spear of Thor in the first slot, then your flying knife, then whatever, really, and then your awakening should be Spear of Thor. It really is negligible for the awakening, so I wouldn't even worry about that. Just focus on getting the Pengu Axe, using that skill, and then deploying the Spear of Thor first. That's really what you want to do. Next up, we're going to talk about mounts. Now, there are really 2 mounts, and I'm going to give a third one kind of in the ether here. The best mount for the vast majority of content is going to be Diego. Diego is going to give you a really, really important bonus. What is that bonus? Well, Diego is going to allow you to get extra combo counts. Extra combo count's going to be absolutely massive, and it's also going to give you 5% extra combo rate per turn. So the thing about this one is that you do kind of need to scale up in between rounds, in between these turns, to actually get the full effectiveness of Diego. That's really what you're looking for. And if you're able to get it up to 5 stars, you're going to get 8% combo rate, which goes up to 40%, right? So that's a huge combo rate increase, but you do need to stick in the battle for a little bit longer. The other mount, and the reason why I mentioned this is because it is relevant for a little bit other pieces of game or game modes. In specifically tower, PvP, and the dungeon dives, you're going to have a lot less rounds to utilize in between. And therefore, the Sphinx comes into play, because the Sphinx is going to just give you a straight up massive amount of skill crit rate and extra attack for hitting a skill crit. It's pretty straightforward. In terms of starring up, yes, star up Diego. In terms of awakening, just awaken whoever is going to give you that extra speed boost realistically. In terms of deploying, I would actually recommend you deploying the what's it called? Oh my gosh, I forget the name. What a horrible video, guys. He doesn't even know the names of the mounts. Catastrophe. There we go. That's what we want to do. Similar to the deploy on the artifacts, the actual mounts themselves aren't Diego and Sphinx, that is, aren't necessarily the ones you want to deploy. Catastrophe is the one I would recommend deploying because it's going to reduce the damage on reduce the target's damage rather. And then the second one I would deploy is the Sphinx, because the Sphinx is going to allow you to revive mounts and deal skill damage. So reviving mounts can be relevant, especially when you're pushing in content. So just something to consider there. But again, pretty negligible about a lot of these things. You really just want to focus on starring up Diego if you can. And the last thing we have for today's video, and there's a lot of other kind of minor pieces that we could sit here and talk about forever. The depth in Capybara Go is actually pretty extensive, which is why I would refer you to the Capybara Go official Discord. The skills, though, these are going to be big in terms of pushing dungeon dives or pushing your chapters or whatever thing gives you extra skills when you're diving into it. I gave you a couple of examples here on screen for some skills that you're going to want to look for. There's obviously a ton of other skills in the game, and there are a lot of just generally good ones. I can't sit here and talk about every single one because that video would be forever, and I want to do an entire video on all the skills anyways. So just something to think about. Maybe I'll do like a full, Whisper skill tier list, because I love tier lists. But Mythic, for Mythic skills that pop up, your 2x dagger, excellent option. It's going to help you trigger all those skill effects. Going to work with the Whisper and any dagger effects that you have. Also, combo mastery or combo spirits. I forget the actual name of this one, but it's, in essence, it's going to give you that extra combo rate, which is going to be a big help in reaching that kind of cap of combo rate. This is combo spirit. And then for legendary skills, we have combo mastery. I think this is the combo mastery, and this is by far the biggest damage increase that your build can have, period. And it might not seem like it, and a lot of people overlook this one, but every single time you combo, you're going to get extra attack, and that extra attack is going to apply to all those other skills hitting. So the damage increasing, not only are you going to get the combo rate, but you're also just going to massively improve your DPS overall. This is the number one to look for. I also put attack shrinking here. Basically any sustain or ways to prevent your opponents from really dishing you a lot of damage is really useful, but also other legendary ones like dagger proficiency could be an okay bonus. Any combo rate effect, any crit damage, any skill damage increasing, usually those are pretty good. Just some things to think about. In the common section, you really want to be looking for these daggers. Those are going to be the biggest bonus. And you notice the dagger rage one here is bigger than the other two, because the number one priority you should have is beginning this dagger rage. This one is absolutely massive, because all those dagger hits are going to allow you to generate rage, which is going to generate you more daggers, which is going to generate you more rage, which is going to generate you daggers, which is going to generate etc. You got my point, okay? That's what you want to be doing. Lightning dagger, the bolt dagger, is the second most important in terms of just DPS. Poison dagger is kind of mediocre, but it's another dagger. It's going to give you bonuses to all your other daggers. A couple of kind of underrated ones. Your healing dagger, any sustain options are always pretty good in up to when you're getting one shot. A little note here I wanted to add, a lot of these random increases for one specific section of your build, but overall damage increases are a big no-no. The biggest trap I see is dagger mastery. Dagger mastery is going to give you extra dagger damage, but it's going to give you a reduction in your overall total damage. This is the biggest trap that I see for Whisperer skills, and I fell for it as well. When you look at the damage profile, when you start to really dive into the Whisperer, your dagger, specifically dagger damage, doesn't actually make up for the damage that you're losing overall, because you're losing the damage that you're dealing from your adventure, you're losing the damage that you're dealing from your other skills, you're losing all the other kind of small portions of damage. And so what happens is if you pick this up for the actual dagger damage, ooh, it looks really good. Well, suddenly you're losing damage. It's actually a negative towards your overall skills. Do not pick up the dagger proficiency. It's pretty bad. Another shout out is a dagger cooldown. That one's actually pretty good for the legendaries, but basically anything that's going to reduce your overall damage. Oh, another one, smelly dagger. Oh my gosh, I got baited by this one so hard in the early, week or two that I started playing the game. But the extra massive damage increase, but reduction or removing all the abilities you've got, like the rage dagger or the lightning bolt dagger, that thing just absolutely just murders your build. So if there's a chance when you're spinning on that wheel or the slot machine that's in the chapters or whatever, make sure that the poo-poo dagger isn't in there, because if it is, it could just completely ruin your entire run. Just something to note. Also included with the dagger proficiency, that's going to nerf your damage, so that's probably not something you want to even risk having. But these are just some examples of some skills that you're going to want to look out for as you're going along. There are a lot of other good ones. As I said, lots of other good ones. Icy spikes are always good. Extra bolt triggers are always good. Extra combo rates always good. All that type of stuff is always good. Heck, even extra crit rate, especially in the early to mid game, is going to be excellent for you to pick up. But dagger, things that work with daggers, generally going to be the ones to go for. Things that specifically extra combo rate / combo chance going to be really good. Sustain and defensive abilities also very, very good. Any sort of CC also very, very good. But that is skills. And that means we've reached the end of our build video today. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed. I put a lot of work into this. I had fun doing it, so it's not like, oh my gosh, please, you must subscribe, otherwise I'm gonna be really sad. No, it was a lot of fun making the video, so I appreciate you all sticking out for this long. If you stuck this long in the video, make sure to comment in the comment section down below that smelly dagger is your favorite skill. Truly it is the best. So I know you made it this far. That said, I feel like I missed so much about the Whisperer. Like, I put a lot of content in this video, but I still feel like there's so much more to learn about the Whisperer. And again, I am not the resident expert. I usually refer to other people who've done all the testing and the math at the whale levels that they are, because they have the options to go ahead and change around their build and figure out what the best options are. We can also have a whole section on gems, but honestly, gems are super rare to get. And so I don't really feel like it's really current enough or rather specific enough to the Whisperer that that's going to be relevant, because there's so many gems, there's so many options, and a lot of them are just generally good, like just global attack bonuses, global HP bonuses, that I would just be like, yep, slap that on. But I'll probably just do a full video on that. There's also things like, you know, niche circumstances, free to play build paths, because obviously just going straight into this is not what I would recommend. But when you're transitioning into the Whisperer after you've summoned on the Angel Bow banner, like I said, many videos in a row, then yes, this is what you're going to want to be considering. This is what you're going to want to be going for. And the build definitely shifts. Like when you get to Mythic, you know, you don't need as much crit rate, so you don't maybe need to go for the Ranger Legacy. That's when you can swap it over. All these different things are factors, and I can't cover them all. I'm just not, I don't have the biggest brain. I don't have like the biggest brain, so I can't think of all the nuances here. I got a big brain, but I got the biggest brain. Okay, cut me some slack. It is what it is. It is what it is. But I hope you all enjoyed the video, or at least the enjoyment I had recording this video. So thanks for watching. Thanks for making it this far. All you smelly dagger people, poo-poo daggers, call it whatever you want. Just that'll let me know in the comment section that you made it this far in the video. And keep on your grind, guys, you Whisperer users. I will probably have future videos covering other builds here, because I have been studying up. This is just the first one I decided to do just because I actually have the Whisperer, and this is the current one that I am utilizing at the moment. So it is the one I've done the most research into. So with that said, good luck, keep on pushing, and I'll see you all for tomorrow's video.